When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Checking off the boxes on your to-do list is a great feeling. And when it comes to checking off coverage, a State Farm agent can help you choose an option that's right for you. Whether you prefer talking in person, on the phone, or using the award-winning app, it's nice knowing you have help finding coverage that best fits your needs. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
There's a reason Chevy trucks are known for their dependability, because they show up no matter the weather, push forward no matter the terrain, and deliver. That's why Chevrolet has earned more dependability awards for trucks than any other brand in 2025, according to J.D. Power. Because in every Chevy truck, like every Chevy driver, dependability comes standard. Visit Chevy.com to learn more. Chevrolet received the highest total number of awards among all the trucks in the J.D. Power 2025 U.S. Vehicle Dependability Study. Awards based on 2022 models. Newer models may be shown. Visit JDPower.com/awards for more details. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast with Rich Ferraro.
Hello, or should I say, hola, bienvenido a 1865, el Nottingham Forest Podcast. Yes, this is 1865. This is YATESY'S Espresso Bar, and it's a very, very special week for Nottingham Forest Football Club. I'm joined by the Maradona of the Midlands. How are you doing, Maradona?
It's a chuffing pleasure to be here. I'm very, very well, thank you.
Great, mate. Okay, so, and are you excited?
I am excited, mate. It's becoming more and more real, isn't it? The thought of it, sort of seeing the players training in the Spanish sunshine today, and having a press conference abroad, and all those sort of things. It's all of a sudden very real, isn't it?
Yeah. We are recording this on the evening of Tuesday, the 23rd of September, and we're going to talk about European football in a little while, and we're going to talk about things to do with Forest match at the weekend. But before we do any of that, I've got a little announcement to make, and you might have seen it on social media, which is that 1865, this very podcast to which you're listening, has been shortlisted as a finalist in the Football Content Awards. So we are shortlisted in the category of Best Club Content Creator for the Premier League. And there's a few clubs represented, including a surprising amount of Tottenham podcasts. I guess they had plenty to talk about last season. But we are the only Forest podcast in that list. So the way they do is it goes to a whole big judging panel. 50% of the vote is done by the judging panel, creating that shortlist, and then the rest is down to the public vote. So we would be absolutely delighted if you could go to footballcontentawards.com and then go to voting and click on the category of Best Club Content Creator Premier League, and you'll see 1865 at the top of that list. Maradona, I don't know about you, I was absolutely thrilled when I heard this news. We've been doing this for a long time, so it's a good feeling to get this shortlisting. Yeah,
it's a nice bit of recognition. It can be a lonely and hard game, podcasting. It's essentially 99% of the time it's a man sitting on his own in a room talking to another man quite some distance away, and you never know if anybody's listening out there or if anybody's paying attention, or you're wasting your time. So for it to have some sort of recognition that we're doing something right is nice.
And to those of you who are listening, and we do get the occasional comment on social media and things added to our Spotify page and so on and so forth, people following us, leaving us reviews. To you, we're absolutely grateful for every time you listen, every time you comment, and we'd be grateful for your vote as well. Now, let's talk about football, because we don't want to be too self-indulgent and talk about ourselves for too long. Right, at the weekend, the big headline was that Postecoglou got his first point as the head coach of Nottingham Forest, and we were having a chat about it, and in the match report, which George and Stephen did after the game, George made a particular mention of it was really important to get something, wasn't it, Maradona? It's really important that we didn't go into the Betis match and then into the Sunderland match on a run of defeats.
Yeah, I think so. There's a swirl of negativity can quickly engulf you in modern day football. 2 or 3 defeats and it's all doom and gloom and the end of the world. I wasn't that sort of despondent because I took the Swansea game and the Arsenal games as a little mini pre-season for Ange. He hadn't really had chance to look at the players or work with them before then. So this is just those 2 matches were an ideal opportunity for him to see the players, try a few little things out. And I don't think the results, it would have been nice to have beaten those teams, but I think it was unrealistic to win the Arsenal game. And I think we were quite frankly just a bit unlucky in the Swansea game. So I wasn't too far down, but I recognised that we needed a base for Ange to start building on, just to take some of the pressure off and just quieten down some of the noise. And a point away at Burnley, I predicted that at the beginning of the season when Nuno was still manager. I didn't think we'd get much more than a point there. So I think it's a decent point and just gives him a nice foundation to build on now and carry on as the Forest manager and hopefully be successful as a Forest manager.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I think there's a couple of things I'd like to pick up on there. Firstly, with the Swansea match, interesting you said it was unlucky. I mean, I think that if you're 2-1 up going into stoppage time and you don't win, never mind losing it, then it's more than bad luck. It's something which you've created for yourself. But on the other hand, I do have to say that the shot by Ethan Galbraith, which hit the woodwork, and then for Burgess as a defender to hit that half volley off the rebound and just absolutely whack it into the net. I mean, if that was one of your players at any level, you'd be absolutely proud of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, those sort of things just don't normally happen. I mean, for the first shot, 9 times out of 10, if it hits a crossbar, it either goes out or goes to safety or something like that. And then if you'd be happy for it to be dropping to the opposition centre half on the edge of the box. To volley it, you say, yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'd be happy. And even their second goal, the equaliser, that was an outstanding finish. You don't see that every day, sort of a first-time cross-body shot. So we're a bit unlucky in that sense that those went in. It gets similarly against Arsenal, their first goal. It could have hit Murillo flush in the face and gone out. It could not have been deflected, in which case Sells would have saved it. So little bits of luck went against us there, as with the offside decisions with against Swansea when we looked like we were going to score or there was possibly a sending off. On another day, they go our way and we win it comfortably. Going in stoppage time, I was very comfortable. I couldn't see Swansea scoring, so it's a bigger shock to me as to everybody else.
Okay, and just to come back to something else you said, like there can be doom and gloom if you have 2-3 defeats. I mean, in that case, is there a danger that the narrative was overtaking actual events, particularly after the Swansea game?
Yeah, I think so. I was getting a certain sense of feeling that some fans were willing Ange to fail almost, just because they didn't want him to be manager. They were almost sort of be happier if he lost, just to prove that he's the wrong person. And I don't understand that. I don't understand the negativity around him. I don't understand why you've got a manager who's sitting there promising you that he's going to introduce attacking, entertaining, free-scoring football. Why you'd be against that? I don't know. Why wouldn't you want that as a football fan? That's what we all grew up wanting and dreaming of. And so I think we just got to give him a chance and let him try his methods and see where we go. Whatever happens, whichever type of manager we go for, there's going to be negativity. When we had a defensive manager and they used to hang on for a goal to a 1-0 lead, they get criticised for not going for a second goal and inviting pressure and losing a point. Now we've got an attacking manager who's going to maybe go for the second and third goal. We're going to get criticised if we concede a goal at that point. But I think I'm quite confident that Ange will win more matches than he loses in that with that method of play, and I think we'll be more entertained as part of the process. You've got to remember, people are paying a lot of money for home matches now, sort of 50, 60, 70 quid a match. do you really want to sit there watching a 0-0 draw, 1-0 win with Forest not really touching the ball? You want to be entertained a bit, don't you? It's fine when you're winning, but at points at the end of last season, people were grumbling because they're paying a lot of money for their season tickets now, and they're losing, and they're not being entertained. So, I mean, at least we can get one out of those two, even if we're not winning. Hopefully we can be entertained.
You know what? That's it's not to do with Forest, but that got me thinking about the fact that some Leicester fans were grumbling about Enzo Maresca, weren't they? So, and what they would do to have kept hold of him.
Yeah.
So, anyway, did we see signs, Maradona of the Midlands, in Saturday's game at Burnley that Ange had learnt from what he saw of the two teams that we put out against Arsenal and then against Swansea? Did we see signs of progress in that respect?
I think so. I think, well, Douglas Luiz coming in for Sangari was a big positive. I think he's a superior player. Not to disparage Sangari at all, but I just think Douglas Luiz is a better player.
It's just to do with power and physicality, isn't it, really?
And starting Bakwa as well, I thought was a positive step. So I think, it's great. I mean, the controversial one is going to be Chris Wood, because that's the one where, if you look at it logically, if you look at it at a cold day, light of day, Igor Jesus does offer more, doesn't he? He offers more movement, holds it up a bit better. Where you can maybe argue is that Chris Wood is a better finisher. From the information we have at the moment, which is seeing him play last season. But I think it's inevitable that he's going to get eventually eased out of the team for Igor Jesus or Kalamendi, and that's going to be the slightly controversial. That's going to bring a lot of attention and noise to us again. But I think the way they were playing, they weren't wildly sort of halfway line, offside trap or anything like that. All the things that get thrown at Ange, they weren't all bombing up, but they were getting more players in the box, more touches in the opposition box. And it's been one of the infuriating things down the years with Forest that they don't get players in the box. And if you don't get players in the box, you're not going to score goals. So it's a positive sign to me that he's getting the players forward, and they're not too scared to have a go and try and win games.
I have to say, one of my favourite chances was, and it was a weak finish from Wood, but that chance, because it was Milenkovic coming forward, doing a 1-2 and then playing it through to Wood. And like, if Wood had been able to put in a decent finish there, then that would have been absolutely awesome, wouldn't it?
It would have been, yeah. And I mean, what people miss with Ange's tactics is when you've got that many players forward, the other team have to have players back as well. Yeah. And it's that element of surprise of having a centre half suddenly popping up on the edge of the opposition box. There's nobody set there to mark him. You've got your midfield runners that you're supposed to be tracking and everything, and you've got your strikers you're supposed to be marking. But nobody's expecting a centre half to come make the late run through and score a goal. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that, and hopefully score lots and lots of goals.
Yeah, and I mean, the other chance, actually, I think it's worth pointing out. So I was a little bit surprised that in our match report, George said that the saves that Dubravka made were, broadly speaking, saves that you'd expect a Premier League goalkeeper to make. And I see why he said that, but I think that's actually doing Dubravka a little bit of a disservice, because the save from Bakwa, again, that would have been an absolutely sumptuous goal. And save from Bakwa, and you consider where the ball bounced on a greasy surface, then that was actually, again, maybe relatively routine in some senses, but he still had to deal with it. I think the save that I would pick out is probably the one from Nico Williams in the second half, and also the one from Jesus. And again, I guess it proves the point that you've been saying for a couple of weeks now, which is Jesus, his style of energy and physicality really offers a lot. And then the fact that he's got finishing skills, and he plays as a 9.5, which probably suits an Ange team a little bit better. Yeah,
and he did it at a wet turf moor. I mean, he's never played in conditions like that before. He'd never seen anything like turf moor before. Same for one or two of the other players, and they got there. They weren't intimidated or put off by the atrocious conditions. So yeah, I was very positive with that point. I was very, at this point in the season, it's not all about results. If they can get a way of playing which long term will garner those results, and towards the end of the season, hopefully have us competing for the big prizes again.
Okay, thank you very much, Maradona in the Midlands. We're going to take a little break now, and then we're going to get our report on the Forest women's team who played at the weekend at home to Crystal Palace. So we'll head over and hear from Matt after this.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Sunday the 21st of September, 2 o'clock, and to the City Ground, where Forest Women's first campaign in WSL 2 continues. What is their story? What is their narratives? Are they going to be a blockbuster smash this season, or a forgettable flop? We all love stories. What's Forest Women's going to be? Well, a book that does leap to mind is the Guinness Book of Records. After all, Forest racked up a whole bunch a fortnight ago when they played their first ever game in the second tier of English football, adding their first loss and first match in the Garibaldi for a dozen fresh signings. Last week, our first away win and our first ever clean sheet. Could this week see first home win out of this fast-flowing river of records? No, alas not. Just as in the opening game against Newcastle, we started tentative, nervy, able to get forward and scare a defence. Boy Halaka smashed from distance again, it's just sailed over, sort of reminiscent of the long-distance strike she fired it at in her debut match. With a little less power, a little bit more clinical finishing, she could have easily got those goal-bound. Unfortunately, also reminiscent of that first game was the lack of gelling together, and passes often fell short or went straight out, and a scrappy clearance saw the ball deflect onto the foot of Palace's tall Belgian midfielder Van Havermeert, who took an unlikely left-footed volley that looped over Batty and in. It's a cracking goal, but was it a textbook genius or a fancy fluke? Palace didn't really care. 1-0. Forest could have gotten even terms a couple of times following the goal, but too often a hesitancy when pushing forward limited their attack. And against the run of play, Kirsty Howard managed to slide in a loose ball that looked like it was destined to go wide for Palace's second. Forest looked shocked, stunned, but if the opponent are so good at pouncing on chances, the defence has to be much better at neutralising them. Now, the last two matches, Forest have come out after a Carly Davis half-time team talk looking brilliant. Now, is it a Fergie-esque hairdryer or a Wenger intellectual realignment? Whatever, it works. Forest were out, tails up, shoulders back, looking confident, proving dominant in all areas, though lacking on feels a killer touch. Deanna Rose, the Canadian Olympic gold-winning star signing, looked brilliant every time she got the ball, and several attempts at long-balling her into goal-scoring positions very nearly paid off. Even against a very physically dominant Palace side, she has this tenacious ability to fight every ball and power from box to box in a fashion that makes Anthony Elanga look like a dawdler. I still hold she'll get double figures this season, despite as yet failing to find the net. Watch your space. Forest kept on high pressing, long balling, fighting every midfield battle like it was their last. Brilliant display. But to no avail. In the 90th minute, another story leapt to mind. The story of that local legend Robin Hood, when Palace brought on Rusha Littlejohn to see out the win. Or perhaps because, well, you'd have to bring her on if you're in Nottingham, wouldn't you, right? But yeah, Littlejohn found she was far from out of the woods. Forest intensity notched up, despite the fact we were well into injury time, and announced that in the 93rd minute, Boy Halorka had another one of her long-distance shots from about 30 yards out, and this time kept it low, kept it controlled, with no compromising power, and it cutting through the box, and underkeeper Yanez, who was left punching the Trentside turf as her expected clean sheet, was stained by an excellent strike. Too little, too late. In a week where last-second goals have sort of slightly ruined the Garibaldi story, could we get one going our way? Rose snatched up the ball under her arm, speeding it back to the centre for kick-off. Would it be a fairy tale finish? Oh, so close. Stapleton sent a long ball forward, and a skillful bit of possession resulting in a cross into the box, right for the taking. Yet, despite Deanna Rose throwing herself at it, she couldn't quite get good contact, and it slided just wide. The whistle blown as the ball hit the hoardings. Another loss then. But against a side that was playing WSL 1 football last season. You feel that, as with Newcastle, and another 10 minutes of play would have seen us square things up, or even go ahead. The longer they're out there together, working together, playing together, the better they seem to be gelling, the deadlier they look. We're still in the early pages of Forest Women's WSL 2 story, and it still feels too early to say exactly what that story is. If this team clicks, if their undoubted oodles of talent can develop a sharper clinical edge, a strong mid-table finish should be pretty easy to attain. 2 losses out of 2 home games may make you think otherwise, but never judge a book by a cover. Or maybe do, but make sure that book is a sci-fi classic Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, famously emblazoned on its front page 2 words: don't panic. Got Newcastle in the Cup next, on Wednesday at home. You better get down for what could be a fascinating revenge thriller.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast.
At Sierra, discover great deals on top brand workout gear, like high-quality walking shoes, which might lead to another discovery.
40,000 steps, baby! Who's on top now, Karen?
You've taken the office step challenge a step too far. Don't worry, though. Sierra also has yoga gear. It might be a good place to find your zen. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Welcome to Yates's Espresso Bar.
Welcome back to the 1865 Nottingham Forest Podcast and to Yates's Espresso Bar. Let's look forward to the big match. By the time you're listening to this, it will probably, most of you will be listening to this on Wednesday, and we're all getting excited. We're seeing photos of fans arriving in Spain. Even the Radio Nottingham lot, they put a picture of David Jackson, Colin Frey and Steve Hodge sitting in a press room in Seville. It's exciting stuff. Now, as you alluded to earlier on, Maradona, we're old enough to remember the last time Forest were in Europe. And you know what? Thinking about it, we were at a really nice age to enjoy it, weren't we? In our sort of mid to late teens. When, you know, you just, the trouble is you end up thinking that everything's going to be like this from now on. And of course, after that, it all went downhill for most of the next sort of 25 years. But exciting to be back in Europe, exciting to be starting with an away match in a place like Seville against a team like Real Betis. And before we look into what Ange has been saying in his press conference, I mean, this is a tough cookie, isn't it? This is probably one of the hardest matches we could have hoped to start with.
Yeah, they've done fairly well this season so far. They've only lost 1 league game and drawn a couple and won a couple of games. And they've got Pellegrini, the ex-Man City and West Ham manager, as their coach, and a splattering of ex-Premier League players. the likes of, if I can bring up my list, oh, there they go, Hector Bellerin, Sofiane Amrabat, they've got Pablo Fornals, Adrian, the old West Ham keeper, and Giovanni Lo Celso, the old Spurs player, and Anthony's there as well, and Isco. So a lot of players we will know, but I'm not necessarily sure that we should be fearful of them. I don't know how many of those players would get into a Forest team. So it's they're I don't think we. Sorry, excuse me. I don't think there's anything that we need to be particularly scared of. It's just play the match and work hard, as we always say, and you can get a positive result there.
Interestingly, I mean, some of those players that you mentioned, yeah, there's some really great players who are in that squad, and players like Isco and Mark Bartra and players like that. Yeah, good players. Ricardo Rodriguez. We've seen people do things on the international stage. But then a lot of those players you mentioned, I'm just going to say, they're players who haven't succeeded in the Premier League. They weren't good enough to make a good impression in the Premier League. So if Forest play the British style, physical, fast, moving the ball around nicely, then do you reckon that will give them a good chance?
Yeah, the only sort of caveat is the heat. It's going to be apparently still sort of 30 odd degrees Celsius when they kick off at night. So maybe they'll have to temper the energy levels a little bit just to make it through the match. So maybe have sort of spells where they control possession, pass it around a bit, and then a frantic 10 or 15 minutes to blow them away. It's nothing to fear. I don't think it'd be a tough match, but we've got a lot of experienced players now, like Zinchenko, Douglas Luiz, Sangare, Milenkovic, Matt Sells. Have all played lots of European football down the years, so it's nothing new to them. And for the players that it is new to, the likes of Morgan Gibbs-White, and Nico Williams, I'm not sure if he ever played for Liverpool, but those sort of players, it'll be exciting, and they'll want to show what they can do on this new stage.
Yeah, and you mentioned Zinchenko there. Obviously, he's been able to be added to the Europa League squad after the withdrawal of Ola Aina. And yeah, bringing Zinchenko in, I think, is important, not just in terms of actually having an extra body at fullback, but just because, like you say, his experience, and apparently he's a real leader, a real kind of model pro. And it's something that I think is massively important for giving that extra bit of know-how the likes of Zinchenko and Milenkovic can really offer.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a quite calming influence I felt in the Swansea game. Zinchenko was sort of just on the ball. Defenders sometimes can be sort of rash with their passes and just get it away from themselves as soon as they can and boot it. But he was willing to sort of, you could tell his background was from Man City, because he was willing to take it in tight corners and then pass it on to another Forest player, even though he's being closed down and things like that. So I think that sort of calming influence will be vital in a European match.
Yeah, and we've seen early signs that Zinchenko is somebody who might well be crucial to the way that Forest will play under Ange. As we speculated, he's essentially proving to be to Forest under Ange what Pedro Porro was to Tottenham under Ange in terms of taking that inverted role. You mentioned about the heat. Ange Postecoglou said in his press conference the players are ready for the fact that we're going to have to make substitutions. That's why we need a big squad, and whoever we start with on Wednesday, we will still need to, be confident in having the ability to make changes. He also commented that Murillo is missing out again. So that's obviously a disappointment, because I think he's a kind of player who hopefully could be able to adapt like a duck to water to European competition. I think the way he plays might suit us quite well in that respect. So with that in mind, can you predict what you think the Forest team might be for the match on Wednesday evening?
Ooh, Gosh.
We'll get the easy one out of the way. We're going to have Sells in goal, aren't we?
Yeah, I managed to get the Swansea one spot on last week, didn't I? So the pressure's on there. I think it will be very similar to the league team that you picked at Burnley.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe the one where I would maybe go for the change, but I'm not sure if Ange would yet, is picking Igor Jesus in front of Chris Wood. But I think it'll pretty much be the same team. And then with a copious use of substitutes during the course of the game, just to keep everybody fresh and energetic.
So can we assume then that we're going to see Douglas Luiz and Anderson in the engine room then?
Yeah, I think unless they're injured, they're going to play almost every game.
Morato at centre half, as Murillo's still missing.
Yeah, I can't see why not. He did very well at Burnley.
And then the controversial one that we have to talk about, Morgan Gibbs-White. Okay, we know that he was pretty good in that first game against Brentford. He's been underwhelming since. So would you still select him, and do you think Ange will still select him in that number 10 position?
I think I saw improvement against Burnley. I think it was a bit more back to his normal self again. And I think having Douglas Luiz there will help him. Just have somebody else shouldering that responsibility. Morgan does a thing where he sometimes does too much, runs around too much, works too hard. And you don't necessarily want him to do that. It was a nice contrast to see McAtee play, just sort of being that floating traditional number 10 who was able to just pick up the ball in dangerous areas and then release it straight away. The thing I get very annoyed, not just watching Forest, but any sort of football match, I find myself shouting pass, either if I'm at the ground or at the TV screen. And for that second goal against Swansea, he did it straight away. So that early pass made that goal, really. So it's a nice contrast to have them. They're quite different players. If you need to unlock a defence, I think McAtee would be an ideal person to bring on. But I think Morgan showed enough against Burnley to keep his place for now.
So it sounds like we can probably expect to see McAtee and Jesus coming on to kind of pep up the attack in the second half.
Yeah, I think so. It depends what the score is. What we've got to remember is you don't have to necessarily win this. A draw would be a pretty fine result.
Yeah, it's worth reminding ourselves it is a league format.
It's a league format, so we get a point at our toughest away match potentially. It'll be a decent start to sort of build on. Again, like the Burnley point was, this could be a great start as well. So you don't know how. But knowing Ange, I don't know if he'll settle for a draw. He might go for it, and then you have to applaud him for that. Really, it's a refreshing change from all the boring managers you see, like Arteta and that long ball merchant Pep Guardiola.
I mean, did you see it the weekend? And Baz pointed this out in our group chat. Man City ended up playing 5-5-0. Bringing on all these defensive subs, taking off strikers. Got a goalkeeper who can't play it out from the back, as you pointed out. Yeah, hitting it long to a big man up front, big number 9. And then when they took off the big number 9, just hitting up front to no one. Yeah. I mean, honestly, anyone would think that he's like the Steve Bruce or the Peter Reid of modern football management, isn't he?
Well, I've said this before, but Neil Warnock was a visionary. with the time wasting, the S-housery, he was years ahead of the game. And now they're starting to play like his teams as well, with the big man up front bashing people around. So it's Neil Warnock probably deserved his own little area in the Footballing Hall of Fame.
That's good, alongside Sam Allardyce.
Yes.
Anyway, that seems like an unexpected point at which to leave this particular podcast. So once again, I'm going to say, please do remember to vote for us in the Football Content Awards. So if you go to footballcontentawards.com/voting and the best club content creator category for Premier League, select 1865. Every vote counts and every vote is appreciated. As you would expect, we will be back with a match report from our guys who are out in Spain. They've been putting photos on social media and everything, telling us about their travels. And I'm sure that win, lose or draw, they're going to have a fabulous occasion. And so I'm going to say thank you to Matt for the report on the women's team. Thank you to the Maradona in the Midlands for yet another lovely conversation. And thank you for listening. We really appreciate your support. We'll be back in a couple of days with that match report. In the meantime, come on, you Reds.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast. Follow us on X, Insta, TikTok, Threads and Blue Sky, and listen via Apple, Spotify and YouTube. All the links are available at 1865.football.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.